Kermit, the early years, reel one, take one.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm joined here by the famous YouTuber Spungle Trumpet, and he's actually the previous owner of, well, what used to be this Land Rover. And I thought it might be instructive if he gives us a little rundown on its history. So you've had this since the 80s, was it?
Yeah, so this was my father decided he was going to get into Land Rovers and bought this one off of a farmer, a Somerset farmer, in about 1987. I don't remember, I think it might have been about £800, something like that.
That's quite respectable money, really.
Well, when you consider it wasn't actually very old at the time. I mean, the Land Rover I'm driving now is significantly older than this one was then. But it had been used for the previous few years purely on the farm, mostly moving around horse-related stuff. So I remember when he got it back to our house, and Mum having a bit of a fit because it was just this thing with different coloured body panels and things, and what I do remember about it was just the amount of cack that was just stuck to the bottom of it. So he got me and my little brother out with paint scrapers, and we had all these big old rubble sacks, and we scraped about 6 or 8 rubble sacks full of sort of cow shit and mud and all this crap off of it before you could even see what state the chassis was in. And I distinctly remember at the time there was something very bad had happened at the back. Once it all came off, and the dad sort of peering at it and going, oh, that's going to need welding. So right from the get-go, that was our first Land Rover experience.
But it's had a rear cross member more recently, isn't it?
Yeah, it's never actually done any miles on the road since that went on. But I seem to remember the rear cross member being a particular thing in the 1980s. That, but it wasn't like my dad to kind of do anything rash like put a new one on. I seem to remember you could buy just the outrigger sections. Maybe you still can. Anyway, Dad kept it on the road for years and just did various outriggers, bits and pieces. I think the engine blew up once, so that got he completely stripped down the engine and rebuilt it from scratch, had it all bored out, skimmed and everything.
Which is of course the engine that's in my other Land Rover now.
Yeah, the 2 1/4.
Which still lives on.
One, so it's still going. I mean, it
must have been. I mean, in the little Land Rover, it plods along.
Yeah.
You know, even unladen with just me in there. But with this thing, it must have been painfully
This
slow.
thing with a 1.5 tons of paving slabs in the back.
Or just anyway.
Yeah, it's very, very underpowered. The whole business with the rear cross member was when about 12 years ago when I moved house, which was the last time this one was on the road, I fully intended to do it up. The rear cross member was in a really bad state by then. So I bought a new one and I put that on, and this is why the issue with the back tub not being bolted on. Obviously I'd forgotten, but I'd taken it off, done the rear cross member, tarted up a couple of other bits, hadn't finished it, put it all together roughly, intending to finish the job, and there it sat for 10 years. So this cross member was the last bit of work that got done.
It just looked more and more sad in your driveway, didn't it?
Yeah, well, it was a useful shed for a while, and
then the cows out the window.
And then the cows out the window, because I parked it too close to the fence, really.
Front mine, this is...
You'd like to know what happened there, wouldn't you?
It's not original, is it, that bit? But that one is. That's still...
Yeah, because it was this side I crashed into the wall.
Ah, right.
So I had to go and do a job in Paris, which involved me flying out of Cardiff Airport, and I'd just done it up. This was going back probably 2002, a bit wet, and I went round a usual bend, maybe in a bit of a hurry, and I span it 180 degrees and smashed into a wall, which involved a bumper sticking off at this kind of angle, and it was all a bit mad. But at the time there was no reverse gear on the gearbox, so I had to, because I was 180 degrees out from where I'd started, I had to drive a couple of miles back up this country lane to be able to turn it around again to come back. But I didn't realise there was any damage at the time particularly. A few weeks later I'm driving along, and when you applied the brakes you had this weird kind of bang 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 coming from this side. So when I got down and had a look, this was the only bit that was still held on of this entire section. I think it was split up there and up there, so the whole piece here, bearing in mind the front spring hangers on this too, was free to just flex up and down. This was always a problem because obviously bulkhead, and anyone who knows Land Rovers knows what happens here. Now these would have been replaced. I don't think I ever replaced the bulkhead outrigger. I think Dad replaced them not long after he first got it. So I suspect what you're seeing here is welding from around sort of late 1980s.
See, there's two outriggers here. Which this is the right type of outrigger.
Yeah.
But for some reason it's higher than it should be.
Look behind that.
Well, look.
Yeah, it's not good, is it? But that's typical of that style of repair, isn't it? Where you just put a patch on. Now this side, conversely, I reckon probably what happened was I was trying to do this on a budget because I was skint that time I moved out. And I had one of these lying around and I thought, well, I'll just stick that on and I'll weld some brackets on and make it good. Tell you what, do you want to get the crowbar to support our... No, that's right, it's on its way. Hey.
Rain again.
Yeah.
So unfortunately the rest of the time Mark was here it just lashed it down with rain and we didn't get back to working on this thing. But now it's sunny, he's gone home, it's just me again, and the mission for the next few days is nice and straightforward. It's just a case of stripping everything down until I get down to the bare chassis. First up I'm going to drop the fuel tank, although before I do that I'm going to drain it of any diesel that's left in it. Now this bucket looks filthy, but I've just wiped out the inside, which is the critical bit. There's a spanner in here. So I'll filter that, I'll let it settle out for a month or so, and then I'll put that in the other Land Rover. Because diesel, unlike petrol, doesn't go off. Let's see how badly seized these are. And yeah, I noticed there's lots of penetrating oils available, but WD-40 is what I got. And it's generally perfectly adequate. No, that's not too bad. Good stuff. Right, so we've got a bolt there, and then the other two are underneath. What I want to do next is take off all the steering gear. The reason I want to do that next is because this inside here, the steering relay, is probably going to be challenging, so I want to tackle that as soon as. It sits inside the chassis, and it's held by these two bolts at the top, and then it's an interference fit for the last inch and a half, something like that, at the bottom. I'm expecting it to all be rusty inside and therefore locked in place. So I need to be a bit careful with this one because I don't want to damage these splines and I don't want to damage the top of the relay either. Should really have a puller on it to extract this one. So I'm not actually chiseling anything, I'm just using the chisel as a wedge. This joint will be replaced, so I can just bludgeon that apart. Yep. Good. This isn't going to be too bad then. So even though it's got splines top and bottom, if I hit them with my copper mallet here, this is a new to me copper mallet, courtesy of Grandad. Thank you, Grandad. If I hit it with that, I'm not going to damage the splines. Definitely moving in there. That's good. So I was expecting to have to jack this out. I don't think that's going to be the case. Yeah, that's coming. That's good. So I have removed one of these before, only once, and I did it just with a 9-inch grinder. So that it's quite satisfying. Excellent. Here then you can see what I was on about. This lower section here, it's a very tight fit into the chassis. This bit here I was expecting to be much more rusty. So yes, I do wonder if it's been out before. Once again, I'm surprised by the condition of a Series 3 Land Rover. So I'd expect the inside of that to be crusty as hell, but it's not. It's absolutely fine. It's a bit damp, but there's no corrosion. The other one that I took out, the tube inside the chassis here had corroded. So that would be a, quite a horrible thing to try and sort out. But this one is absolutely fine. So that's great, that really is. Well, I can't believe how easy it was to get that steering relay out. I was really expecting to have a fight in my hands there. Well, to celebrate, I'm going to fire up the generator, fire up the compressor, pump up the air, and use the air tools on this bit of suspension. In case anybody wants a review of this Clark X Pro impact gun, it's okay. It's fine. It's not as strong as I am. It's not even much quicker. Well, that went jolly smoothly. I'm thinking now, whilst I've got all the air tools out and plenty of air in the tank and so on and so forth, I might as well take off the rear axle on a bit of a roll. Yeah, I'm going to do that. That was all going so well. So what's in the top of this spring is two of these pulley brushes, one in each end, and then a metal tube in the middle, and I think that tube has rusted onto the bolt, and that's what's going round, and that's why when I hammer on the back here the bolt's not coming out. There we go then. So I've got a couple of these super fine, super skinny slitting discs. Now these do tend to explode. So whenever I'm using them, I have that in mind, that they're potentially about to explode on me, and then it's fine. As long as my eyes are protected, I don't mind picking bits of that out of my face. Hey. Well, that's great progress, I think. Very nearly down to the bare chassis. Once I mean I've got a few bits and bobs to do, like the fuel lines, brake lines, the handbrake lever, bits and bobs like that. But once it's bare, completely stripped, I can then flip it over and get the needle gun in it. And that's all for next time, I think. So that'll do for now, and I'll see you then. Cheers.